walking west when you think you're going east. You'll be walking east when you think you're going west. So this generation, especially of our people, have a burden upon themselves more so than at any other time in history. The most important thing we can learn how to do today is think for ourselves. It's good to keep wide open ears and listen to what everybody else has to say. But when you come to make a decision, you have to weigh all of what you heard of its own and place it where it belongs. And then come to a decision for yourself, and you'll never regret it. But if you form the habit of taking what someone else says about a thing without checking it out for yourself, you'll find that other people will have you hating your own friends and loving their enemies.
Good evening. This is Tariq Lang, and it's November 29th, 2020. And we are here for another edition of Cultivating the Culture. Thank you. As you heard our brother Malcolm X speaking. Always on our show, we have him speaking. And what he does, the statement that he made 56 years ago is relevant today. And that is one of the major objectives of our show, Cultivating the Culture. We want to try to be able to work, to be able to have our future generation, our future generations, our younger generations, to be able to learn to think for themselves. We are at a time that the people are not thinking for themselves. And when Malcolm had made that speech, 56 years ago, or might as well say 60 years ago, people thought for themselves a little bit more because they did not have the interference of the social media, the television, the phone, and other things that are there, commercials, trying to tell them how to be able to think. And as he stated to the people at the time, it's important for you to be able to think for yourself, because if you can't think for yourself, you'll be headed east when you think you should headed west, or headed west when you think you should be headed east. Or even like now, we like to use the left. You'll be on the left when you think you're on the right, and you'll be on the right when you think you're on the left. So what we try to do is bring our culture back to be to cultivate our people or the future generation. So by maybe 2040, we'll have a generation of leaders and a generation of thinkers that will not be followers. This show is not meant for you to follow me or follow other individuals. The only ones that we should hope that you should follow are the real life example, a real life example of our father Abraham, the real life example of Moses, the real life example of Jesus, the real life example of Muhammad. Peace and blessings be upon all of them. Because on this show, we are unapologetically believers in the unseen being, the creator of existence. And so we know that during the 60s and the 50s and previously, we had always been a strong people that believed in God. Our two last major leaders before these things started changing were Malcolm, as we say him, and Martin. Both were men of God. And this is something that we pretty much have left as a society. And so these are one of the things that we want to turn back to be able to be proud and happy to be able to express ourselves. Our organization, as we stated before, if you see my shirt, the shirt says Jamaat al-Sijin. That was one of our organizations where we have prison ministry, and we go and we work with the prisoners. And that's why on this show, we're going to start with the penal system. Jamaat al-Sijin, we say that the life of this world is a prison for the believer. And because Adam, our father Adam, was sent here for a certain amount of time, and he's doing his time, and that's how we have to take it. We remind the prisoners that when you come out from the small prison to the big prison, you have to still have those restrictions. Our organization, Jamaat al-Sijin, is part of our larger organization, which is called Ummah al-Iman, or a nation of faith. And a nation of faith is we don't call it an interfaith. It's a one faith. It's an interreligion. The faith that we focus is belief in the Creator, belief in His angels, belief in His books, the revelations that He sent, belief in His prophets, belief in the determination, or what we call the qadr, that He has determined everything, and the belief in the akhirah. This is something that we try, and we sit down and we talk with the other people of different religions, but we focus on that one faith where we worship the creator of existence and not man. So going to our show, the last time what we did, we talked about Ice Cube, like you said, thinking for yourself. During the election just before the November 3rd date, or November 4th, whatever, there was a lot of controversy because Ice Cube had sat down and met with Donald Trump. And the people were saying they shouldn't have met with Donald Trump, and they were giving false narratives saying that he had signed up with Trump and was promoting Trump. And then Ice Cube was on several different shows. He showed that he said that he's not promoting him. He was just basically focusing on a product, something that they had put together was called A Contract with Black America. And we posted it for the people to be able to see. And as he stated, he said that it is time for us to be able to have a national agenda for us and various different issues. So we sit down with who's ever running, who's ever winning, and whoever runs, whoever wins, and says as a black community or African American community, what are our objectives? What are the things that we need, as opposed to letting them be the ones to make that determination. And as I said, as far as people thinking for themselves, you ask the average person about Ice Cube in the situation, and they would say, oh, he tried to sign up with Trump. Well, as I told you before, is my humble opinion. The reason why they gave this misinformation is because he had a pretty solid program. And it's actually not his program, it's his that he worked to put together, but there was different professionals at each level, and they addressed many different things. So since our program is learning about you thinking for yourself, about changing the culture, we thought that this is an excellent program for us to be able to go over, because it is very professional and it goes over so many different issues. What we decided is that on each show we would discuss one of the 8 points, and this is from the index of it. Number one is black opportunity and representation. The second point is massive. Number two, massive bank lending and finance reform. 3, judicial and public policy reform. 4, constitutional amendment. 5, police reform. 6, entertainment industry reform and reparations. 7, monuments and institutions. 8, Black Americans' responsibility. And for me, Black Americans' responsibility is something that I push, and actually with our show, we want to be able to focus on that. But I understand why they put it at the end, because we have to be able to present the other issues that's necessary, and then, of course, we can identify what do we have to do. And so on the last show, we went over black opportunity and representation. On the second one would be massive bank lending and finance reform. We are going to address that, but actually on this one, we're going to do judicial and public policy reform, or judicial, because we've been working with the prisons, and like I said, with our program, Jamato Sijin, working with the prisons, and this is that's dear to me, because there's so many people that I know have gone into the prisons, and I know the system, how it has affected us, and it has affected our community in so many different ways, and it keeps us in this state of oppression. So basically, okay, I'll go over it, is number 4. What it says is judicial and public policy reform. So we break it down as 4A. So the first subject is 4A. Recognize racism as a public crisis that mandates a federal response. So in this, he's pushing that them on the agenda that they have to recognize racism as a public health crisis that mandates a federal response. And as we see with this COVID situation and the disparities in the as far as the hospitals and the care and the high numbers in the black community. Most of the places where they have the high numbers in the black community is because of this disparity. And one of the perfect examples is what we just had, where we had Trump. He said he got COVID. He went and he jumped in his plane, in a helicopter, and flew over, and he got treatment. And next thing you know, he's okay. Okay. Other people, they have access to the high-level drugs or high-level care, and they're surviving. Most of these people that we have heard about as far as top-level people, they're surviving. Even as far as the athletes, you would hear that they got COVID. And what are they saying? Are they scared that they're going to die during the basketball season, the NBA championship? No, none of them died. We didn't even consider them dying. We knew that they had the top health care and that they were going to be all right. They just sat out and they took care of them, and they did not die. And they came out and they played basketball, and they came out and they played football, and they came out and they did whatever they did. Why? Because they had the economics. And it's funny because there's so many from our tribe that because they're in that position where they're playing basketball or they're going to the colleges, they're able to take advantage of that high level of medical care. But then we have the extremes where we have prisoners. When they're in the prison, many of them were dying because they didn't have that medical care. They were mixed in with other prisoners and their cellmates or cellmates that had COVID. And also, even in the prison, they have to pay a co-payment when they hardly make any money. So this is a definitely something that's important. Another issue, number B, 4B. He said ban all privately run prisons. And then they suggested fines established to be paid by companies that profited off the private prison system. I mean, these are suggestions, and it's open for you to make it. But ban all privately run prisons. I totally agree with that. The private prison industry, it's no coincidence that when we had this war on drugs in the 1980 is also the time that the largest company started, 1983 in January, Corrections Corporation of America, CCA, which is now called Civic. It's a billion-dollar corporation. That's when they started. And they started in Tennessee, Nashville businessman. And that's when you started seeing all of these laws. That's when we went from 500,000 to 2.2 million in such a short time. So because it wasn't profitable then, when no one was making profit, they couldn't use them. But when it became private industry, all of a sudden we have this increase in prisoners. We have this need to be able to lock everybody up. Actually, I was reading something. It said that in 1992, William Barr, then United States Attorney General, authored a report, The Case for More Incarceration, which argued for an increase in the United States incarceration rate. So these are the type of things that were happening. They were coming out with laws that were making sure that these corporations would be able to get profit. The corporation, they have lobbyists. What are the lobbyists lobbying for? They're lobbying for more contracts? No, they're actually lobbying for longer sentences so they can be able to make sure that they have enough occupied beds. Or even the states are doing it, because when the states set up the contracts with these so-called private prisons, they have it that they they're paying by occupancy. So even if we have 1,000 beds, but you have 10% occupancy, that's a problem. They're still paying that 1,000-bed rate or something thereby. So they end up doing quotas, and then they increase the numbers. So this is profit-driven. And so it's no coincidence that all of a sudden we get all of these laws, these corporations lobbying for longer sentences, not for the purpose of changing society, not for the purpose of rehabbing the people because they want more time with them, for the purpose of increasing their profit and the amount of money that they have. And then now we're at the point where we have prison labor, where we're paying the people less than we were paying them 20 years ago. So a person, if I'm a construction worker or I do asbestos, we're doing asbestos in New York State, you have to pay $60 an hour. In New York State, if you doing asbestos and you have a prisoner, you pay him $1 an hour. So if I have a project and it's $1 million project and my labor is $500,000, if my labor is $500,000, my labor burden is usually 20% of that, so it brings it up to $600,000 that I have to pay in labor. But if I use prison workers, then if it was $500,000 and I'm paying $50 or $50, let's say $50 an hour, that's 10,000 hours. If I use prison labor, I'm paying them $1, then that means that it's going to only cost me $10,000. So look at the difference. I pay $500,000, or with the burden rate $600,000, but if I use the prisoners, I pay $10,000. So that means I'm pocketing $590,000 from $1 million contract. So what is that but slavery? So but we are not looking into that. We act as though this is some special interest type of situation. But what we're doing, and what Ice Cube and these people are doing, they're reaching out to the private industries. They're reaching out to the politicians, but they're also reaching out to you. They're reaching out to you to be able to get involved, to be able to know the laws, to be able to assist these people, to be able to understand what is really happening. Next one is 4C, prison labor not allowed without consent. Prisoners to be compensated at minimum wage and hazardous pay provided for applicable duties. As I mentioned, I talked about prisoners. I talked about the pay. One of the things is that in many of the prisons, that if the prisoner decides not to work, he can be punished. Many guys are sent to the hole because they refuse to work. They're not going to work, so they send them to the hole as a punishment, and they'll do other activity to punish them. And especially in the private industry, there's no restrictions. There's no real monitoring what they do. So, and you can punish a prisoner without doing direct punishment. You can do indirect punishment by putting them in a cell with a person that you know is a known abuser, a known crazy person. And so then, and you have a difference in sizes. And many officers do this for their own entertainment or when they have issues with people. Next one is 4D, declare the Ku Klux Klan a terrorist organization. Why are they not? When we look at the laws for domestic terrorists, they qualify. I mean, from their history. You talk about an organization that started basically in 1863. So even if you started with 1870, and so that's 50. That's 150 years. They have a 150-year history. They have 150-year evidence. They have 150 years of cases that actually show they are a terrorist organization, domestic terrorists, even according to the FBI's thing of being a domestic terrorist. But we don't classify them as that. Why is that? If somebody does something and they scream out Al Qaeda or Taliban or whatever, and they never joined the organization, but they decided before they did the crime that they're going to be a member of it, we put it on the organization. But yet the Ku Klux Klan and Aryan Brothers and all these other organizations, whenever we have some racist incident goes on, we say the person's a lone wolf, even though they're members of these organizations. So we make it that the organization has no responsibility. So this right here, D, is something that we all should be pushing for, and the politicians should be pushing for it. Next one is lynching to become a federal hate crime with recommended federal sentence of life. Is another thing that's been going on for a long time. Why is this not considered a federal hate crime? Lynching. Most times people are lynching, particularly for racist reasons. So it should have been classified. I remember they were trying to work towards something, and maybe a couple of years ago, or whatever, 10 years ago, something of the sort, and it never came about. So this is something that he's pushing forward. And these are things that these politicians should be signed off with. These are things that we should know. Like I said, that's when they attacked Ice Cube, they never mentioned these things. They just meant he wanted to sit down with Trump, or like he was a crazy person. Well, the reality is Trump was the president. You guys allowed him to be in. You elected him, and if he won again, then he would still be the president. So whether he's the president or not the president, these issues, these items need to be addressed, and we need to be able to have people that are pushing forward. So I commend the brother for his effort. Next one is F. Free nonviolent incarcerated for nonviolent offenders incarcerated for 10 years or longer who have less than 5 variable write-ups. Write-ups can be challenged and often and given due process. One of the things is a lot of people don't realize a write-up. A write-up could be anything. And a lot of times when people have to go in front of the parole board, they end up getting turned down because they had write-ups. Okay, somebody could tell me to get up from a seat. I'm still eating. I say something, argue with them. I get in trouble. I get a write-up. So, I got 20 years in prison. I've been in here for 20 years, and I got a write-up. You put me in a cell. I'm ready to get out. You put me in a cell with a guy that's a known rapist, not outside in the street, a known rapist in prison. And you put him in a cell with me, and he tries something, I break his neck, and then now I got a write-up. Why? Because I'm defending myself. Even though the officers knew that that person had that history, but they do that in order to be able to make sure that they can continue to make the money or continue to keep you in. And so when you have a person that has gone this long without any write-ups, they should be treated differently, and it should be known. So this is good. G, free all prisoners for marijuana possession. Here we are. Now marijuana is great. People are loving it. They have it in all the places. Everybody's buying. All the stores are open. Okay, well, 10 years ago, oh, it was such a terrible thing. It was terrible. This is a drug, and why are the people doing this? Back in the day, they had a movie called Reefer Madness, and it showed how terrible this drug is. Well, many people are in prison. Why? Because of just simple possession. And then while they were in possession, they got a record, and then because they got a record, then they couldn't get a job, and then they fell into that cycle. So saying that the free all prisoners that have marijuana in possession, this is something that is good, and it's something that we need to look at the legal issues, and people that have experience with the law, then they should focus on that. And like I said, all of these things that he suggested, all these things they suggested, they want you to participate and bring your expertise. They want you to do your research and to be able to find out how can we make this happen. Not to argue, not our regular thing. I want to break it down why this can't happen. Just like actually we're going to be taking phone calls, and we're not here to argue for somebody to say why it shouldn't happen. We're here to find out how can we move forward. So eliminating laws establishing mandatory minimums. Mandatory minimums is one of the other ways that they were able to increase the amount of people to be in prison and make sure that those prisons stay at 95% occupancy, 85% occupancy. So these guys continue to make the money, and the lobbyists for these large billion-dollar corporations, that's what they were pushing for. Eliminate 3 strikes laws. What is this, baseball? You're playing a game with people's lives? 3 strikes? I remember when I first heard that, 3 strikes, you're out. What is this, baseball? This is a joke. But this is real. They put people in prison in California. They're still in there because of these things, for small items, for stealing from a store or something of the sort. 3 times you did it, and that's it. And everybody just went with it. And we just sat back like we couldn't do anything. No. What you can do is be involved in the process, find out where the process is, and then making sure that these things are overturned or they don't come into play. Use our lawyers that we have to be able to stop it, to say how it's unconstitutional, to be able to play games or baseball with somebody's life. For J, first offense for illegal drug use or possession to require government payment for entry into a drug-approved rehabilitation program rather than imprisonment. Many people that are using drugs have reasons, depression and other things. They need to be in a drug rehab program. You find them with a possession, let's find out what's going on. Many of the children that I used to work with volunteer at the juvenile facility, and they're taking ADD drugs and all kind of other drugs, and they get addicted to drugs. They've been taking drugs since they were 5 years old. Now you've got a child that in order for him to be able to cope, he has to have some external drugs. Now you've created an addict. Now he's an adult. Now he's using all kind of drugs. So we need to be able to follow up on that. Once a prisoner completes a sentence, voting rights are restored. I mean, what is it? Because you did a felony, and now you're not American citizen anymore? Citizenship, when we received citizenship, we got the right to vote. Even the women, they had to, black women, white women, to get a right to vote, they had to go through extra measures and all that to get the right to vote. So just because you did a crime, you were convicted of a crime, you lose your right to vote? No. After you do your time, then you should be able to vote. There's a personal data. Most states publicly release bulk data about arrestees unchecked, like the 1970 Fair Credit Reporting Act. So what he's saying is that like with my credit report, I pull my credit report, I can see what the issues are, I can dispute it. We should be able to do that with the records, or people with the prison record, pull it up and be able to dispute the things, or show that, okay, yes, I did 10 years, but I was there on good behavior, all of these other factors, and to be able to point that out and certain things to get expunged. I mean, this is great. And so one of the things is it's important for us to look at this contract with Black America. Go over these things, make a contribution. Now, the time has gone by quickly. We said that we were going to open up the phone lines, so we have 4 minutes. The number is 301-429-9247. That's 301-429-9247. Like you said, each week, next week, I would love to. We want to try to go over number 4 constitutional amendment, and we have a lawyer who has written a book. His name is Muhammad Bashir, and he's written Raw Law and several other books, and he's a constitutional expert. So we want to be able to have him on the show to be able to deal with that subject, because it's important. Like I said, we want to be able to go over these things to be able to have a basis. But changing the culture is first, you have to be able to have knowledge. You have to be able to learn to think for yourself. And how do you think for yourself? You have to do your research. If I told you anything, then I need you to be able to investigate. Everything that I said in here, you need to be able to do your research. It's important for you. Or have your child with that computer to do the research. Once we start creating a culture of people that are educating themselves, like Malcolm X. Look at this man. This man never finished the 7th grade. But yet, before he passed, I believe it was in 1964, he went to Oxford. Now, Oxford University is one of the top universities in the world. He went to Oxford and debated. And he debated the people at Oxford and was successful. Now, here it is, a man that self-educated himself. And with the limitations that we had, that he had to take a dictionary and read the dictionary. Now we have it that we can be able to have a dictionary. Caller on line 1. Thank you. Hold on. Hello? Okay, hold on. Hello? Press speaker. Okay, I'm new at this. You're gonna have to have patience with me. We got a caller. Maybe we'll get another caller. But going back to Malcolm, so that's why we use him as an example for this man to live the life that he did and change his life. But one of the major things was that he had some type of guidance. He had religion. He had faith. He had belief, and it increased and it increased. But he continued to study. And here we are today with the technology that we have, where we have computers that can be audio. We have audio dictionaries. We have, okay, now we have a call. Now I'm going to try to do it. Hello?
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. I was calling in reference to with the prisons, because I know with some states that it's, if a prisoner comes out in some states that he does restore his voting rights. But I just wanted to, see, is there a national plan, and is that what I...
Yes. From my understanding, that's what he's trying to do. What he's trying to do is get these things turned to the national level, because a lot of things are just by state. So a lot of things are just done by state. Yes. Yes, he's trying to get this on the national level. A lot of things are just done by state. And some places you actually have to go through procedures. You submit some documentation, and you can be able to restore it. I believe that the District of Columbia, other places, are places that you can restore. And it's important for the people to be aware of that. But what he's saying is not leaving it up to the states, because you have some states where the governors are and the senators and the attorney generals are consistently racist individuals, and they have somebody that's not, and they change the law, and then somebody else comes in and they change the law. There's certain things that have to be across the board, and this is where they expect the feds to be able to step in and set some type of standard. The right to vote is not given really from the state, because if it was initially, the right to vote is a national right. The right to vote is your right as an American citizen. You have a right to vote. Once we got our freedom, we got a right to vote. If we would have waited on the states of South Carolina and North Carolina and Mississippi and Alabama, then we'd still probably be waiting for the so-called Negro to get the right to vote. So, but like I said, going back with the prisoners, this loss of the right to vote is still is a continuation of this with the slavery, where it says that involuntary servitude is illegal. The amendment says involuntary servitude is illegal except in cases of imprisonment where a person has been duly convicted of a crime, and that's it. So anyway, we've reached the end of our show. I appreciate it. I know we try to get a lot in a certain amount of time, but we hope between now and next week you will do your homework, and also we hope between now and next week you will go and pull up Contract with Black America to be able to understand how can you contribute. What can you do in understanding, what are they looking for with the police reform? What do we need to do? And it's going to take us. There's no such thing as our savior has arrived. And okay, now Biden's in, he's our savior. Obama's in, he's our savior. No, Obama had a job to do. He was a president, and he did a good job, better than everybody else as a president. But his job was not to save the black man from his situation. Biden's job is not to save the black man. His job is to be able to be fair to all Americans, whether they're Democrat, Republican, black, white. It is our job to be able to make sure that our next generation, ourselves of course, but our next generation is in a good position to succeed. And that takes us to be able to do some work. It takes us to be able to utilize the tools that we have. And it takes us to come on back and change this culture from the ignorance that they're pushing on the radios and the TV and the streets to intelligence that we started out with before we came here and at the beginning. So peace be with you. Thank you very much. And I'll see you next week.